Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. What a day in space history. We got a Mercury launch in this date, space history, two very significant astronauts' birthdays, pioneering astronauts. We're going to talk about two space shuttles that were launched to the 12 beautiful space shuttles launched in the month of October. And I'm going to educate y'all a little bit about the Shuttle Centaur rocket program that had two interplanetary probes that were going to be launched by a hydrogen and oxygen fueled liquid rockets in the cargo bay of the space shuttle. Something that never happened, and boy, are some people glad that it didn't because they thought that was pretty risky. So, the Shuttle Centaur program we're going to talk about a little bit today on Stay Curious. Thank you all for joining. We've got, looking at my smart tablet here, got Marty over there. Marty, great to see you today on our Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. We will not have a program on tomorrow. I have to attend a trade show of people in the industry, uh, people that book your tours, tour agents is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to a trade show uh, of travel agents, and I won't be able to get back for the program. So that's fine. We need to wean you off maybe a little bit to stay curious. As my future will probably involve cutting back to 3 times a week as we are working to keep our museum open here, and I'm taking on some extra duties. Um, and I'm looking to see your smiling faces on my YouTube channel here. Always kind of compromised by that. We'll see. There it is. Great. So we can see who's watching and take your questions. We want to say hello to Marty Winkle over there. Marty's on our Streamlabs board. Marty has a question that we're going to pose most days, and I'll get to that Marty Winkle question in just a minute. We want to thank no, there's back. Oh, where are we going? I know, we're going to go this way.
I'm going to move it.
There we go. We go that way. We want to thank GoHistoryTravel.org. By the way, Marty's covering up our birthday boy there, the youngest moonwalker. I think you all know who that is.
I'll move you back.
You want to move me
I'll move
around?
you.
There, move me around there. Whoa, wait. It's been one of those days. I'm just kind of shaking and rolling all over. There we go. The Ramanujans are a great family that travel the world, and they are have a philanthropy attitude and have donated significant amounts of money to our museum. We're very grateful for that. Check them out and where they're at in Europe now. They were just in Switzerland and traveling around. Quite unique perspective on the historical sites that you know about, but then they take you and tell you more stuff about it. So Facebook and GoHistoryTravel.org there. And we're going to have a memorabilia show in 4 weekends. Looking forward to Saturday out at Beachside Hotel and meeting many of you folks out there, buying something for yourself or your space geek in the family. Great time to shop for holiday there, and we look forward to that. If you're a vendor in the area, tables are $30. And the Shuttles of October we're going to talk about. As you know, that we love talking on our show about the shuttle astronauts, over 300 of them around our country and around the world doing good things. 12 shuttles launched in the month of October, and they oddly enough include all the orbiters, but Endeavour did not launch in the month of October. And we'll talk about a couple of those missions, STS-51J and 41G, a couple of the alphabet ones that were between STS-9 and 26. It was an accounting procedure they used that just messed up all the numbering there and keeping them categorized too. And like I said, we're going to talk about a place in history where STS-61F and 61G were to fly the Ulysses space probe to around the sun, and around the sun, and Galileo to Jupiter. And they had crews, they had emblems, they had some training under the Shuttle Centaur program. There is the liquid fueled hydrogen liquid oxygen Centaur fueled rocket that would have had to been maintained during launch and orbit with topping off the fuels and so forth in the cargo bay, and that is something that a lot of astronauts are glad they didn't have to do. Marty's quiz space trivia question of the day, Marty.
Okay, this is too simple of a question for Steve Holcomb. So maybe, Steve, if you're listening, you probably don't want to answer because it'll be too easy for you. But how many windows are on the Space Shuttle orbiters? How many windows?
How many windows on a Space Shuttle orbiter? So stay curious and we'll answer that. I know you all are counting them up there. Okay, so how many windows on a Space Shuttle orbiter? And I had a number in my mind, and then I go, wait a minute, I'm missing a window or two there. So that's a good question there. We're glad that Dean Babcock's watching. We've got Dave Stange. He's up in Macomb, Michigan. Fall is definitely in the air. Boy, it's not here. I walked out this morning and about 8 o'clock and just sucked in another healthy 90% humidity out there. Carlton Bailey's there. Carlton, I was wondering if you'd had any pictures of the Vulcan supposed to launch tomorrow morning at 6 in the morning. Marty, have you looked at the weather or anything about that? You going out there to watch it?
No, I think it's a little bit too early for me to go out to the Space Center.
At 6 in the
I
morning.
might just walk out my front door.
Yeah. That's the luxury of not living in Macomb, Michigan, is we can look out our front door and watch that. Hey, there's John Borelli. Hello, all. He watched yesterday's show this morning. Thank you, John. Great show as usual. He loves the trivia question, all right? And he's going to say 6 windows. And Steve Jokums has already guessed up there at the Lake County Spaceport on the shores of Lake Michigan, 11. Hi, Tom Usiak and Tom Celentano. Sorry to go late occasionally, guys, but we're not, if I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. And you know I'll be on eventually, but putting all this together, as many of you like Tommy Usiak has seen me do, is sometimes challenging, and this has kind of been a unusually challenging day for me. But we put a bunch together here. We're going to enjoy a question from Marty Most Stay Curious shows. So how many windows on the Space Shuttle? Let's see. I know there's 4 on the front. Okay. And we'll leave it at that. Those of you space geeks and on Facebook and other websites know that Wally Schirra rocketed to orbit on Mercury Sigma 7 on this date, October 3rd, 1962. And he orbited the Earth 6 times, doubling what John Glenn had done, and Scott Carpenter. Each did 3 orbits. This was an exceptional flight for Wally Schirra. Wally also led our efforts back to space on Apollo 7. He was going to do everything by the book. Now, this was one of the big pranksters and the gotchas, jokes that the Mercury guys are famous for. Wally is just known for prank after prank. Him and Alan Shepard really leading the pranksters. So, but he was very detailed, meticulous when it comes to space flight, and his flight was completely nominal, unlike Scott Carpenter, who kind of deviated a little bit and had some problems with the Horizon event indicator that burned up some extra fuel that he was blamed for, but it was an actual problem with the an automatic display. Well, this fun-loving astronaut, who is quite a prankster, let's look at a picture of Wally there. There he is in that famous blue overalls that we've got Gus Grissom's in our Mercury Gemini gallery in there, holding a Hasselblad camera, it looks like. There's Wally, was fun-loving, quite a practical jokester, as I said. And when he was in orbit, Capcom Deke Slayton, Mercury astronaut, asked Wally, "Are you a turtle?" And this was an inside joke to aviators. If you were asked, "Are you a turtle?" you're supposed to reply, "You bet your sweet ass I am." And if you didn't, you had to buy everybody within earshot a drink, all right? And we've got a plaque on the wall talking about that, all right? You had to say the word ass, or you would never be required, or you would be required to buy a beer for everyone in earshot. All right. At the time when off-color language was never heard on TV or media radio, uh, and you could hear all those bad words on The Simpsons at 7 o'clock, or Family Guy cartoon at 7 o'clock at night. Uh, Certainly, you didn't whisper bad words from the lips of our national heroes. So they delighted in each other as asking that question in uncomfortable situations. Well, he was asked that while orbiting the Earth. He wasn't going to say ass on the worldwide network, so he talked that into his microphone tape recorder. Then we've actually got a real one here at the museum. Looks just like my 8-track player in my Volkswagen. Uh, let's see. Carlton Bailey's going with 9 windows. Dean Babcock 10. Marty. Tom Celentano met Wally at a DC autograph show in 2003. A great guy. Everybody says this guy was a great guy. We've heard wonderful stories from Nick Thomas, the astronaut wrangler at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. He, I think, particularly favored Wally of all the astronauts. He could, Gus Grissom, of course, is a lot of us number one too, also. Um, the lovable Wally, after he, of course, did Gemini 6, where he and Tom Stafford flew up to Gemini 7 for a day and came back, and then he was the important 10-day mission of Apollo 7. The lovable Wally then became the sidekick of CBS News anchor Walter Cronkite during the Apollo moon missions, wiping a tear from his eye on air after hearing the Eagle had landed. And he died in 2007 at age 84. So Celentano, you saw him about age 80 in there. And he's got a website there. So we always love talking about Wally Schirra. All right, let's get to what's up next is, of course, some birthdays going on next. I'm gonna put my hat on for this gal, and wave my birthday wand there. Happy birthday, as we've got Kathy Sullivan. Okay, is 73 years old today. Born in Paterson, New Jersey, on October 3rd, 1951. There she is at an autograph session. She grew up in the Woodland Hills district of Los Angeles, however, had been born in Paterson. Dr. Kathy Sullivan of Oceanography is where she got her doctorate degree. She, of course, is in the first group of 6 female astronauts, and she flew on 41G this month. In fact, was on her first mission during her birthday in 1984 when she was 33 years old. And on October 11th, she was the first female to do a spacewalk. There's her official Obama administration. I said Biden. Obama administration photograph when she was the director of the oceanography. She was the Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and the administrator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and she served our country well doing that. And there she is next to looking out space on her mission. I believe she had 3 missions. STS-31, deploying a space telescope from Discovery, the Hubble, and then STS-45, an atmospheric mission called Atlas, which was her wheelhouse there. And here she is with her handprints that we have in our women's gallery. Love her handprints there with Eileen Collins and Sally Rides. And there she is on a boating mission out there. Quite an ocean and sailor she is. Go ahead, Marty.
She was also the first one of the 6 women astronauts that George Abbey called.
Yes. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Let's see. So there she is wearing her astronaut blues out on the ocean on there. Love to meet her. Hope she gets in the queue in her retirement coming up Kennedy Space Center, because definitely an inspiration to women and men everywhere. And another happy birthday, the youngest moonwalker. I'm sure you all know, there he is, Charlie Duke, turned 89 years old today. Uh, One of four moonwalkers still alive. Charlie was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, the great Queen City. Okay, on October 3rd, 1935. That makes him 89 years old. The 10th of 12 people to walk on the moon in April 1972 with John Young. That is the Casper, the command module behind them, shown so beautifully out at the U.S. Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. It looks like a gem, a jewel in this glass case they have it in, illuminated from the bottom. That's my favorite display of all the command modules there. And quite active is Charlie Duke. Marty's had him involved in the Grumman reunions over the last 25 years that they'll have no more. And the Grumman, of course, built the lunar module that Charlie was the pilot of and just raved about. Of course, he was also the Capcom, and the first words from the Apollo crew on the surface were Houston, a Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed. And the person you hear say, Roger, Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. We're about to turn blue, and we got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. That was Charlie Duke. And those famous words that will forever be linked to Neil Armstrong's words on the surface of the moon, I think. One and done, never flew again. A rookie, by the way. I think there were 7 rookies in the Apollo program. Let's see, you've got him, Schmidt, as moonwalkers that were rookies. Jim Irwin was a rookie. Basically, Alan Shepard was a rookie, but for 15 minutes with and Bean was a rookie, and Mitchell was a rookie. So quite a few rookies when you look at it, walked on the moon. So Duke is a great guy. I've had to, well, we got some pictures here to show you what a great guy he is. There he is in his youth. The classic picture of him, and one of the more famous pictures of him. Dirty there. You know that's him because he doesn't have red stripes on his helmet or his arms or legs. That would be the commander would have those. And yes, I got to show you a selfie with me and him. This was your Grumman reunion about 4 years ago, Marty. 3 years ago, maybe. What an amiable guy. He was at an event at Zarella's Pizzeria. There was Marty talking with him. His wife's the white-haired lady there. You were asking him something, Marty. You remember that conversation? Excuse me.
Yeah, I was asking him about why Apollo 11 missed the primary landing site by 4.25 miles. Why did they overshoot it? And because part of I've heard in the past that it was some pressure in the docking tunnel between the lunar module and the command module, or it was lumpy gravity. And Charlie contends it was the lumpy gravity.
Lumpy gravity, called mascons, mass concentrations under the moon, where there's high concentrations of gravity from all the lava there. Yeah, Duke is quite a friendly guy. He does a lot. He lives in New Braunfels, Texas. He is on the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, big supporter of them. Used to be chairman of the board. And just in case you're wondering, he is the youngest of 4 moonwalkers. Buzz Aldrin is 94. Dave Scott is 92. And Harrison Jack Schmidt is 89. Born July 3rd, I think. Schmidt is born. So, though they look in good health and act in good health, every day, you know, is a closer day to where we'll have no moonwalkers to talk to. And he's very. I mean, Marty, you like him a lot. He's so just normal guy. He's always been a champion. Dean Babcock says he met Charlie at an Astronaut Scholarship Foundation show, and Tom Celentano's met him also. If you're a space geek like they are, you know, he's one of the guys kind of on your bucket list you got to meet, and he's genuine and just so grateful for what he's done and willing to talk about it. So there's happy birthday to Charlie Duke. Sure that he's having a good one today, wherever he's celebrating it. So, in one last picture, there's the 2 birthday people with Nicole Stott. There's Nikki at the, that's probably the Space Fest that they had. But there is a cool picture of two birthday people there. Nicole Stott shares her birthday with a couple astronauts. Off the top of my head, I think one of them is Story Musgrave. Well, Shuttles of October, and we love talking about them. Uh, Different aspects of it is when I went through it today, I found an interesting tie-in into the Centaur rocket that was going to be proposed to launch satellites out of the cargo bay, and it was a liquid fueled rocket, and that was a little bit horrifying to some people when they realized what the intensity of maintaining it in the cargo bay on the pad and so forth. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But 12 shuttles, where's my crib notes on that? Of course, you had some interesting juxtapositions of history. Of course, STS-95 at the end of the month was John Glenn's flight at age 77. You've got two interplanetary probes to Venus and Magellan, Magellan to Venus, and Jupiter's Galileo that had a lot of protests. The Galileo had protests over the radioactive thermal generator, radioactive material, while Magellan didn't, and it had the same reactor. Well, like Hugh Harris, the late public affairs officer of NASA, told me they didn't brag about the Magellan having the RTG, and word got out in a negative way on Galileo, and people chained themselves to the fences. We'll talk about that later on there. How about 41G and Cribb's second command in 1984 with Kathy's spacewalk, and we're going to talk about that, and Sally Ride's second flight. 3 flights for Columbia, 2 for Challenger, 4 for Discovery, and 3 for Atlantis, and none for Endeavour in the month of October. So let's talk about a couple of these missions here. One that was launched today, October 3rd, and as a Department of Defense mission that always have a patriotic theme to them. Let me get into my book here of Shuttle 51J, shuttle logos that many of you have. Shuttle logos, the 51J mission insignia designed by Atlantis' first crew. This is the maiden flight of Atlantis. Pays tribute to the Statue of Liberty and the ideas it symbolizes. The historical gateway figure bears traditional significance for astronaut Carol Bobko, the commander, and Ron Grabe, the pilot, both New York natives. So pretty simple and pretty much don't know anything about it. This is a 1985 early Department of Defense mission, the second classified mission. And everything 4 days. So these quick, when they're up there just 3 or 4 days, they usually deploy a satellite and then get back. But Ron Grabe, David Hilmers, Robert Stewart, and William Pales were the astronauts on board that mission. And let's go to another one that we do know. There's the launch of it. That was interesting, Marty. In 1984, they still had the Saturn V out in front of the Vehicle Assembly Building. What replica of the shuttle would that be, Marty? Does that be that one, Independence?
Probably. I don't really know.
Uh-huh. Okay, somebody might know, but great shots there of the launch of a top secret mission that they wouldn't announce the launch of these till a couple hours before, though there were great indications of what was going on. Of course, completely sterile photo of the crew in space, not going to let on to anything that would give away what the top secret mission was there. And they landed at Edwards Air Force Base. Another beautiful shot of our thin blue line, the only border that should matter on Earth. Well, let's get to 41G. Of course, you know, the 1 in this nomenclature meant it was launched from Kennedy Space Center. There was going to be a 2 for Vandenberg. The 4 means it was launched in fiscal year 1984. All right. And 51J was launched in fiscal year 1985. All right, fiscal years go from October to October, so that even makes this more confusing, this numbering system. And the G is A, B, C, D, E, sort of in the year. They would designate the order that they were being processed and hopefully launched. So for STS 41G is oh, American red, white, and blue there. There we go. There, 41G insignia focuses on its 7 crew members, the first to exceed 6, the U.S. flag, and the unity symbol known as the astronaut pin. The pin design in the center shows a trio of trajectories merging in infinite space, capped by a bright, shining star, and encircled by an elliptical wreath denoting orbital flight. That is the astronaut pin that they get in gold when they have orbited the Earth. The artwork was done by Patrick Rawlings. And this was a very, very ambitious mission. Bob Crippen commanding a flight. John McBride was the pilot. His only flight, of course, got caught up in the shuttle. And then you got Kathy Sullivan, Sally Ride's second flight. David Leesma, he's a Hall of Fame astronaut. And you had Canadian Mark Garneau and Paul Scully Power, who's Australian, I believe, on that mission. And Marty, you got a question there.
Comment from Tom Usiak and Carlton and Steve Holcomb. They say it was the Enterprise, but I'm not sure. I mean, they must be right. But,
Okay.
I thought it was just a mock-up out there.
Well, that is, we got 3 Enterprises there. So, and Neil 1030 says he's glad they ditched the numbering system with STS 26. Yeah, that was such a cumbersome way to label our fleet of missions, but it was because of the accounting procedures of it. So there's the beautiful launch there. Occurred early in the morning. John Borelli goes, what was the name of the shuttle book and author? We got Shuttle Space Stories by Tom Jones is one that we've been having around, and there's a couple other ones there, John. Here is some of the ambitious things in the payload bay of the cargo configuration, where the first very ambitious, they deployed satellites. They had what they call right-of-way packages. Some businesses and even universities paid to have things put in the payload bay with their experiments. We have one of the prime missions seen on IMAX film, Steve Joachim says, is the Dreams Alive. That's absolutely true. Did a lot of that. John McBride did a lot of that filming, he told me. And there's the Sally Sullivan's spacewalk. And let's see who she spacewalked with. I think it was Leesma she spacewalked with on there. 8-day, almost a 9-day mission. Earth radiation budget satellite was the main deal, and they had the Office of Space and Terrestrial Applications palette in there, and 8 getaway specials. That was the ride shares that they have on there. So I see those other questions there. We're glad you're watching, Terrence. We want to stick to today's program on the questions. Thank you. So there is Sally and Kathy in space. All right, two women in space. Uh-oh, Marty, battery level low on our camera. Something's going out here, folks. We just lost me. Something's gone on the camera. Hold on a second, folks. We'll answer Marty's trivia question. The camera is not plugged in somewhere.
Where?
And we've lost me on there. So stay curious a second here, folks. All right.
Got it.
There we go.
You didn't recycle it.
All right, we're going to reboot the camera here. If you're listening to me, and you probably are, we'll get the video back here. You guys just had a little plug kicked out of the way there. Okay, there, the magic of television. So after 4.5 years, we handle these little faux pas with a lot of grace, where I used to just get flipped out over it. But anyway, so that's a perfect segue into something that is very little known about. The uh, two flights. Here is we've got two symbols here, two emblems of 51F. Was a NASA space shuttle mission planned to launch in May '86 using Challenger. Of course, it was canceled after Challenger was destroyed that January. This was going to deploy the Ulysses solar probe that would travel to Jupiter and use its gravitational slingshot in order to be placed in a polar orbit around the sun. And this would mark the first use of the Centaur G liquid-fueled payload booster, all right, which was going to be used on other missions. So the crew was Fred Houck, all right. Roy Bridges would have been his second flight, would have been Houck's third. John Lounge, who would have been his second, and David Hilmers would have been his second. So dangerous was this Centaur rocket inside. Well, that, and I'm going to show you some configurations of it here. That the chief of the NASA astronaut office, John Young, referred to the two, and Moonwalker John Young, referred to the two Centaur flights as the, quote, Death Star flights, unquote. That flight was risky enough that Commander Houck gave his crewmates an option to leave the crew if they considered the mission to be too unsafe, all right? So this basically crew became, without Roy Bridges, the return to flight after Challenger STS-26. And, of course, they flew Ulysses on STS-41 using a solid-fueled inertial upper stage, the IUS. So the other mission, there's the astronauts there. Should have flipped that on there. Lounge is at the top. Roy Bridges there, becomes center director. He's in the Hall of Fame. Fred Houck there. And then that's Dave Hilmers, who's also in the Hall of Fame. Astronaut Hall of Fame there, wearing their military garb there. So then the other flight was going to be Walker. Dave Walker would have been his second. Ronald Grabe, his second. Norm Thagard, his third flight. And James Van Often, known as Ox. All experienced, all right. John Fabian was supposed to be on here on his third trip to space. But Marty, we've met John Fabian several times, and he said this in his talk, that his wife had earlier told them that his marriage had a 2-flight limit. So he was done after 2. And Norm Thagard was going to replace him. This was going to be the Galileo spacecraft going to Jupiter using a Centaur G upper stage. There's the crew. Okay. And all thinking about that they're going to fly. Now, the dangerousness of this Centaur stage was the liquid-fueled hydrogen and helium in it. It had its own emblem there with the mythical creature Centaur, all right? And there is the actual item being lowered into the operations and checkout building. It was quite large, as you're going to see here in a second. There's 2 versions of it. Look at how big it is, Marty. This is at the Lewis Research Center in Ohio, now called the Glenn Research Center. I'm thinking of who's in the... Anyway, you got a bunch of people, some astronauts in there, showing you how big that would be in the payload bay. Can you imagine that? With hookups to it to keep the hydrogen topped off and the oxygen topped off before the minute of launch. So we're going to have to drill some holes into the side of one of the shuttles to keep the lines in there. What were they going to use? Atlantis. Yeah, Atlantis was the rocket that they were going to use. The orbiter, I mean, on these missions. So Atlantis is going to have to be customized for this. And here is the Shuttle Centaur configurations. 2 different ones. Okay, the Centaur G and the G Prime. G Prime had more power to it. But as you see, the clearance on the top, 30 feet available for the spacecraft. on this end, and then 12. You got on the other one 40 feet is available in the spacecraft there. Okay, in the payload bay of the shuttle, I think it's 60 by 40, something like that. Let's see. We got Nick Sedler loves the patch. Cliff Watson's woke up in the Emerald or the Gold Coast there of Australia, up in Pomona. They've got a springtime going on up there. And there's another view of this Centaur rocket, a real thing. Can you imagine it being so dangerous that your commander says, well, if you want to chicken out on it, we're not going to call you a chicken, but because it was just an unknown thing to do. And boy, were they glad that they didn't do it. And it was replaced by the initial upper stage right there with the Galileo. This is STS-34 that did deploy the Galileo spacecraft in 1994, or when did they do that? In the 1990s. That was deployed. Our friend was pilot on that. Galileo was deployed in, October 89. All right. They canceled this after the shuttle era. They'd had enough about it. So there you have the story of the Centaur G that was going to be in the payload of the shuttle, launching spacecraft interplanetary. Two of the missions that were canceled. They were going to do this. Maybe a godsend that they didn't go on there. So shuttles of the month of October. We've got some interesting ones to talk about. Would you believe that Pam Melroy's 3 missions are all in the month of September? 3 of her 4 missions, the month of October. And we'll talk about that. Twice a pilot and then once a commander in October, Pambo was. So hope you all enjoyed that. Now, how many windows on the space shuttle? So I gotta have I don't have a shuttle near me to hold it. So my guess is 4 in the front. You got 2 overhead. So that is 6. Then you've got 2 looking out the back payload bay. So that's 8. And you've got the window, the round window in the hatch. And so I'm going to say 9, Marty.
Well, up front, I said Steve Hogan would have the answer. And he did. Excuse me. There are 11.
Steve Jokums is the winner.
Yeah.
11.
There are 6 forward windows.
6 forward windows. All right.
And then the other ones you got correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bet people forget the 2 looking out in the payload bay.
No, I think they forget the ones in the at the hatch.
The rendezvous.
Yeah.
The one circular one in the hatch there. So can't fool Steve Jokums. He's built those models like crazy with his business, Space Coast, Lake County Spaceport. Look him up on eBay or Facebook, and he'll sell you some decals for your space shuttle models. So thank you all for participating in that. And we're going to have Marty have a trivia question with us frequently on our show. And once again, no program tomorrow. I'm going to take the day off and be talking to a lot of travel agents about our museum in the Museums of Brevard that I also represent, 22 beautiful museums. So hope that you miss us, but we'll be back Monday with some backyard astronomy and kick off another great week. It's going to be a great week with the launch of the, well, we don't know if that's going to be on hold now, because they have grounded SpaceX for the Falcon Heavy launch of the space probe that I can't think of the name of. So thanks, Marty, says Steve Jokums. He's got it right there. 6 cockpit. I was thinking 4 cockpit windows on there. So I got some guests lined up next week, including Bert Dick of the National Space Society. He's going to be talking about their latest things going on, and we'll get some other, always a busy time when you've got some heavy launch and other things going on. So hope that we get these anomalies straightened out on the Falcon 9 and others tomorrow morning. We're looking forward to a 6 a.m. launch of the second flight of a Vulcan rocket for United Launch Alliance. So I'll have my alarm set. That should be spectacular because of it's an hour before sunrise, so it'll be right in the twilight. And thank you, Carlton. That's the Europa Clipper that is being launched on the Falcon Heavy. And they have stood down the Falcon 9 momentarily because they had an anomaly on the second stage splashing into the ocean. And they want to make sure they got that figured out so it don't splash on a cargo ship somewhere in the ocean. So thank you, everybody, for watching today. Like I said, no program tomorrow on Friday, but we'll be back Monday with some backyard astronomy and then hit hard all the space news going on the Space Coast. Glad that you enjoy Stay Curious, and thank you for all your contributions to our museum. Until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again in our museum to bridge the space between us.